Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Let's do it.
Today we're tackling something that's super relevant for anyone prepping for UPSC mains.
Oh, yeah, definitely. This one's going to be helpful.
It's all about India's goal of becoming a global manufacturing hub. And to really break it down, we're going to be looking at a recent article from The Hindu.
Sounds good. Always a great source for this kind of topic.
So let's jump right in. This whole idea of India aiming to be a manufacturing powerhouse, it's a pretty big shift from, where we were just a few decades ago.
Yeah, it's a pretty dramatic change in the narrative, right? Moving past those post-colonial economic struggles to wanting to lead the way in global manufacturing. And that shift is being driven by a lot of things that government initiatives like make in India, for sure. But the big question is, how realistic is this ambition?
Exactly. And that's what we're here to figure out. Now, the article from The Hindu, it actually points out some pretty impressive successes.
Oh, yeah.
For example, did you know that Apple's iPhone exports from India have actually quadrupled in the last fiscal year?
Wow, that's huge. I mean, Apple's a global giant. That says something.
Right. It sounds promising. But on the other hand, is one success story enough to call India a rising manufacturing powerhouse?
That's the question, isn't it? One data point doesn't tell the whole story. Sure, Apple's growth in India is a big deal, but can we replicate that success across other sectors? Because, I mean, India definitely has its strengths, a large and skilled workforce, tons of technological advancements happening, and the government is really pushing for trade agreements.
That's true. There's a lot going for us.
But the question is, are those advantages going to be enough to overcome this significant hurdles that are still in the way?
You're right, and the article definitely doesn't shy away from those challenges.
Like what?
One that really jumped out at me was the whole issue of logistics. You're
Hmm.
getting things from point A to point B.
Yeah, logistics can make or break any kind of manufacturing operation.
Exactly. And apparently, India's logistics costs are way higher than the global benchmark.
How much higher?
Well, according to the Economic Survey of 2022-23, India's costs are something like 13 to 18% of GDP.
Whoa, that's a lot.
I know. And the global benchmark is only 8%.
Yeah.
That's a massive gap to bridge if we want to compete on a global scale.
Yeah, no kidding. High logistics costs, I mean, that directly impacts how competitive we can be in the global market. If we really want to be a manufacturing powerhouse, we got to figure out how to move goods efficiently and affordably. Didn't the article mention something about the Gati Shakti plan?
They did. The Gati Shakti National Master Plan sounds like it's a step in the right direction, at least on paper. But like you said before, implementation is key. We need to see real improvements on the ground.
Yeah, it can't just be plans and promises. We need action. Improve roads, railways, ports, the whole nine yards.
Absolutely. Because it's not just about making the goods, it's about getting them where they need to go quickly and without breaking the bank.
Totally. So what else did the article highlight as challenges?
Well, this one's a bit of a tricky one. Labor laws.
Yeah, those can be a bit of a sticking point.
It seems like a lot of businesses are concerned about how rigid the current labor laws are in India. Although, to be fair, the government has started making some reforms to the labor codes. We'll have to wait and see how effective they are in practice. But even beyond the laws themselves, there's another big issue we have to address: the skills gap.
You mean making sure people have the skills needed for modern manufacturing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're going to need a massive effort to upskill and reskill the workforce, especially if we want to meet the demands of what they call Industry 4.0.
Industry 4.0, that's all about automation and data exchange, right?
Yep, AI, robotics, advanced manufacturing techniques, all that good stuff. Those are the skills that are going to shape the future of manufacturing globally.
And it's not just about having a large workforce, it's about having a workforce that's ready to adapt to these rapidly changing technologies. So where do you think India stands on that front?
Well, that's a discussion for another time, maybe. But before we wrap up this part, we can't forget about a crucial part of the Indian economy: the MSMEs, micro, small and medium enterprises. They're often called the backbone of the economy. So, are they facing any specific challenges when it comes to this whole global manufacturing goal?
Oh, absolutely. One of the biggest hurdles for MSMEs, and this is a consistent issue, is access to credit. Despite initiatives like the ECLGS, the Emergency Credit Line Guarantee Scheme, a lot of these businesses still struggle to get the funding they need.
How bad is it?
Well, Crystal estimates that only about 20% of India's MSMEs actually have access to formal credit.
Wow, so we're talking about potentially millions of businesses that are being held back because they just can't get the capital they need. I mean, without proper funding, how can they expand their operations? How can they compete on a global level?
Exactly. And the article also mentions this idea of the China plus one strategy, which is basically companies looking to diversify their manufacturing bases. They don't want to put all their eggs in one basket anymore.
Yeah, I've heard about that. A lot of businesses are looking for alternatives to China. So where does India fit into that?
Well, India is actually in a really good position to benefit from this trend. I mean, just think about it. We have the workforce, the resources, and now, with this push for manufacturing, the government support, it's a pretty attractive package. And in fact, India's chief economic advisor, V. Ananthan Nageswaran, has even suggested that we could actually attract Chinese investments themselves as part of this whole China plus one strategy.
Wait, so attracting investment from the very country that companies are trying to diversify away from?
Yeah, it's kind of a bold move, but it could be really strategic. Imagine that. Replacing imports with Chinese investments, it's definitely thinking outside the box.
That's for sure. So it seems like India has a lot going for it. You know, the potential's there, the ambition's there, and we've got some early wins under our belt. But at the same time, we can't ignore those challenges. Logistics, labor, access to credit, these are serious issues. So realistically, do you think we can actually overcome these hurdles and truly become a global manufacturing powerhouse?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And that's what we'll be exploring in the next part of our deep dive.
All right, listeners, stay tuned for part 2, where we'll be diving into potential solutions, the role of technology, and what needs to happen to make in India a reality. See you soon.
All right, so we've talked about the challenges holding India back. Those logistics bottlenecks, the rigid labor laws, the skills gap, and the struggles that MSMEs face when trying to get credit.
It's a lot to tackle, but got to start somewhere. What do we do about all of this? I mean, are there actual solutions out there?
Definitely. And the Hindu article, it actually lays out a pretty good framework for how to approach these issues.
Okay, so let's start with those pesky logistics costs. We talked about the Gati Shakti plan, right? But what does effective implementation actually look like? What needs to actually happen?
It's going to take a multi-pronged approach, that's for sure. Upgrading our physical infrastructure, that's absolutely crucial. Think major improvements to our road and rail networks, modernizing our ports, making sure everything's seamlessly connected. You know, all those different modes of transport need to work together smoothly, but it can't just be about physical infrastructure, right?
Yeah, technology has to play a role here too.
You got it. We need to get serious about integrating technology into our logistics networks.
What does that look like in practice?
I'm talking real-time tracking of shipments, automating warehouse operations, maybe even using smart traffic management systems to keep things flowing.
So like using tech to make the whole supply chain smarter, more efficient.
Exactly. More efficient, more transparent, and that all leads to lower costs.
Makes sense. All right, so we tackle the physical stuff and bring in technology to streamline things. That should help with the logistics costs. What about labor laws? The article mentioned those as a concern for businesses.
Yeah, the labor laws, they can be a deterrent to investment. The government, like you said before, they have started making some reforms to the labor codes.
But will they actually make a difference?
We'll have to see how they play out in practice, right? It all comes down to implementation and how well those reforms balance the needs of businesses and workers. But even beyond the reforms themselves, there's something else we need to be focusing on, and that's skills development.
Ah, yes. Bridging that skills gap. It keeps coming up.
And for good reason. We need to invest big time in upskilling and reskilling our workforce.
To get them ready for all those high-tech jobs.
Precisely. AI, robotics, all those advanced manufacturing techniques we were talking about, that's where the future is headed. We've got to prepare people for Industry 4.0.
So it's about investing in our human capital just as much as our physical infrastructure and technology. Now, what about the MSMEs? How do we help them thrive in this evolving manufacturing landscape?
Yeah.
They were really struggling to access credit.
Yeah, and expanding access to credit for those MSMEs, that's absolutely crucial. We've got initiatives like the ECLGS, and those are a good start, but honestly, we need to do more.
Like what?
Streamlining the loan processes, making it easier for them to actually get those loans.
Yeah.
Maybe offering lower interest rates or even coming up with some totally new financing models that are designed specifically for MSMEs. We've got to remove those barriers to funding.
Empower them to actually grow and compete.
Right.
So we've got streamlining credit, upskilling the workforce, using tech to fix logistics. That's a good start. But let's not forget about the environmental impact of all of this. Can India really become a manufacturing powerhouse while also being environmentally conscious? I mean, those two things seem like they'd be in conflict, right?
That's a really important point. And the good news is sustainability isn't just an option anymore, it's a necessity. The Hindu article even emphasizes the importance of green manufacturing.
So how do we actually do that? How do we make sure that Make in India is also sustainable?
It's got to be about integrating sustainable practices into the entire manufacturing value chain.
What does that look like?
I'm talking about encouraging industries to use renewable energy, maybe even incentivizing companies to adopt more eco-friendly production models.
So basically making it more appealing to do things the right way.
Yeah. And embracing those circular economy principles, minimizing waste, conserving resources, that sort of thing. It's about lowering the environmental footprint of all this manufacturing growth.
So being green is not just like ethically the right thing to do, it's also a smart economic strategy in the long run.
Yeah.
Sounds like India could actually benefit a lot from embracing green manufacturing. Now, what about reducing our dependence on imports, especially imports from China? That whole Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative seems pretty relevant here.
Definitely. Becoming self-reliant in key sectors, that's a big part of the picture. We need to ramp up domestic production.
Of what?
Critical components, raw materials, especially in areas like pharmaceuticals, electronics, renewable energy.
So we need to bolster our own manufacturing capabilities so we're not so reliant on other countries for those essential goods.
All right, we've covered a lot. Logistics, labor, sustainability, self-reliance. It's a pretty massive undertaking. So where does technology fit into all of this? It seems like it's kind of woven through everything we've talked about.
You're right, technology, it really is the linchpin. It's not just about automating tasks here and there, it's about fundamentally changing how we approach manufacturing. And that brings us to, well, the next part of our discussion, which is the role of cutting-edge technologies in shaping the future of Make in India. And we're back for the final part of our deep dive. We've talked about the challenges, the potential solutions, and now it's time to look at the really exciting stuff, those cutting-edge technologies that could totally revolutionize Make in India.
And these aren't just like futuristic ideas anymore. These technologies are already starting to reshape the manufacturing landscape globally.
So no more sci-fi fantasies. This is the real deal.
It's happening. And the Hindu article we've been looking at, it specifically talks about the potential of artificial intelligence, robotics, even the metaverse.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Paint me a picture here. What does a tech-powered Make in India actually look like?
Imagine like smart factories where machines are talking to each other, constantly optimizing production processes in real time. No more delays, no more bottlenecks, just super efficient manufacturing.
Sounds pretty futuristic.
Mm.
And the robots, where do they fit in?
Robots working alongside humans, they could take over the repetitive or dangerous tasks, freeing up human workers to focus on the more creative and complex stuff.
So it's not about robots replacing humans, it's about robots and humans working together.
Exactly, it's about collaboration. And then we've got blockchain technology, which can make supply chains super transparent and traceable.
So we can track every step of the way. That's got to help with efficiency too.
Big time. All of this adds up to a level of efficiency and responsiveness that honestly was just unimaginable a few years ago.
It's like a whole new world of manufacturing. So if India wants to be a leader in this tech-driven manufacturing revolution, what do we need to do?
Well, first things first, we have to invest, like seriously invest in research and development, especially in fields like AI, robotics, and advanced materials. We need to create an environment where innovation can thrive, where tech startups can take off, and where there are incentives for companies to develop these cutting-edge manufacturing solutions.
So create the right environment for all this cool tech stuff to happen. Makes sense. But what about the workforce? They're going to need new skills to keep up, right?
Absolutely. That's another crucial piece of the puzzle. We have to make sure that people are equipped with the skills they need to succeed in this new technological landscape. Think retraining programs, apprenticeships, maybe even completely new educational pathways that focus on these high-tech skills.
It's like we need a whole education and training overhaul to keep up with all this rapid change. Now, we've talked a lot about MSMEs facing challenges. Can they actually be a part of this high-tech manufacturing future? I mean, can they afford to adopt all these fancy technologies?
That's a really important question. And honestly, technology can be a great equalizer if we make it accessible to everyone. We need to make sure that these tech solutions are affordable and user-friendly, especially for those smaller businesses.
So no one gets left behind in this tech revolution.
Exactly. Bridging that digital divide, making sure everyone has the opportunity to participate in this new tech-driven economy, that's essential.
It's about making sure this transformation is inclusive and benefits everyone, not just a select few. All right, we've covered a ton of ground in this deep dive. From logistics and labor to the metaverse. Where do we even begin to wrap all this up? What are the key takeaways for our listeners, especially for those prepping for their UPSC exams?
I think the biggest takeaway is that India has a real shot at becoming a global manufacturing leader. We have the resources, the talent, the entrepreneurial spirit, but, and this is a big but, success is going to require a really comprehensive, multi-pronged approach. We can't just focus on one thing.
It's about tackling those existing challenges, embracing the new technologies, and really fostering a culture of innovation and sustainability.
You got it. It's a tall order, but I think India is up for the challenge.
It's definitely a call to action for all of us, right? To think critically about these issues, to innovate, to figure out how we can each contribute to making India a global manufacturing powerhouse. And for our UPSC aspirants out there, this whole topic is just begging for some in-depth analysis. So definitely check out the original article from the Hindu and explore these themes further. It could be a game changer for your exam prep. And for everyone else, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop your comments below. Let's keep this conversation going. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with your friends. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep those UPSC dreams alive.